This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And John, this week's episode of Tigers Talk is brought to you by DC Sports at Lakeside Mall in Sterling Heights. It is your go-to source for authentic sports memorabilia in Metro Detroit and beyond. And you can follow DC Sports on Twitter at DC Sports Detroit and at their terrific website of DetroitCitySports.com. And welcome to the latest, freshest edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I am your host, Vito Geronimo Chirco, alongside my usual sidekick and broadcast partner and fun. That is Doc from Doc and Jock, John Charles Macaroon, who is back from vacation, enjoyed the sunshiny state of Florida. He looks tanned, already is a little bit dark at times. So he's looking good, refreshed, energized for this week's edition of Tigers Talk. John, how are you doing, and how was your trip as well?
Vito, the vacation was well-timed. 8 days in Florida. Got to check out Miami Marlins Park. I met Jorge Posada. My nephew forgot his pen to get autographs, and we go back to the parking lot. We parked literally right next door to the park, and all of a sudden there's a gentleman. I'm like, I know this person, and I look real fast. I'm like, that's Jorge Posada. And I said, hello, sir, and my nephew got to meet him, said hello, went to Miami Marlins Park to check out the Dodgers and the Miami Marlins. And oh my God, Vito, that park is lovely. It's empty. It's great because of the fact that we got to walk around. The food relatively was affordable. The experience was great. I got to see the bobblehead museum. My nephew caught a baseball from Walker Buehler. We got a chance to see him warm up in the bullpen. And I said, hey, can I get a toss-up for my nephew? They looked at us. They acknowledged us. And someone in the bullpen looked at my nephew, had the ball up in the air, and tossed it to him. My nephew was thrilled. We had a great time. And at the same time, the Tigers were playing a series versus Tampa Bay. The vacation, Vito, was great. It was much needed. You know I've been going hard with the podcast, the practice, other things as well. And stay tuned to the network. Follow us at Detroit Podcast. A major announcement is going to go down. I haven't announced it just yet, but the network did get recognized for the work that we did, and I've been retained by a major news outlet, and it's going to be a great day. It's going to be a great time for the network. It definitely is going to help out. So all in all, I'm sitting here feeling confident. I feel refreshed. I'm definitely excited to talk to you. I missed you. I missed seeing you and talking to you. So how was that last week's Tigers Talk podcast?
It didn't happen, right? There was no edition of Tigers Talk. This week, there is an edition at least of Tigers Talk. And because you're back in the fray here, John.
Exactly. I was talking to my wife. I'm like, I wonder if Vito will just post something on his own. And she was like, no, if you took a vacation, take a vacation.
Thank you, Andrew. I took a vacation, too, from Tigers Talk for a week. The Tigers need a long-ass vacation at this point for like 6 months or a year because they have stunk it up.
Now,
Yeah.
You know me, normally I'd be like, come on, Vito, step up to the plate. But when we're doing a weekly Tigers podcast and basically the news of the day continues to be Ron Gardenhire getting ejected, a lot of errors. Really, at the end of the day, you could look at the minors, but that's not going to draw a lot of attention on a big scale. So, look, congrats to you on your vacation from the Tigers Talk podcast. I'm looking forward to getting into it this week. I'm looking forward to recording so bad. What are we talking about this week?
Well, the Tigers continue to stink up the joint. Over the weekend, they were in Florida, as you were, playing the Tampa Bay Rays, as you already noted, and they didn't look the best once again. They had some close, highly contested games, you can say that, but they couldn't score runs, including Saturday night. Jay Zim came back from the IL, pitched well. 5 innings, I think 1 hit allowed, no earned runs. They went into extras and lost in 13 innings. But how did they lose? They lost in epically bad fashion for their offense. They struck out 24 times, walked 0 times. Major League Baseball record for a single game. And for the Rays, in which they struck out that many Tigers bats without allowing a walk. It had never been done before, that many strikeouts by a team without allowing a walk, John. And it happens against our hometown, our favorite baseball club in the Detroit Tigers.
I'll say this. My nephew, I asked him, I said, okay, who are your favorite Tigers? He's like, nobody. I said, really?
Say, come on, Zuzu. Give us some love. Give us love for somebody on the Tigers at least.
Already, his allegiance has now switched to the Dodgers. He loves Cody Bellinger.
He's a bandwagoner already.
Got
Come
his
on,
jersey.
you didn't teach him how to be a loyal fan? or his father did it? There's nobody in your family that could have taught him to be a loyal Tigers fan through the thick and thin?
Vito, at 9 years old, he already recognizes the Tigers are going to stink for a long time. And anybody that you mention, he knows their stats. He knows the prognosis. He even knows. He's like, why is Nick Castellanos hitting so well for the Cubs? Why isn't he doing it here? He knows because of the fact that the Tigers and this season has been so bad, so disappointing. Even the young kids know. I mean, he's bright. He's a 9-year-old kid that watches game in, game out. He's like, the Tigers struck out 24 times. What the hell's going on? And I want to ask you this, okay, definitively, okay? Because I would naturally assume that we obviously have talked about the fact that other athletes like Nick Castellanos, Justin Verlander, now James McCann, have left the Tigers and have performed, okay? So now you're starting to see Nick Castellanos, and he's raking for the Cubs, damn near crying in interviews saying, I feel like a kid again. I feel like I can breathe. I'm winning baseball games. My manager loves me. And you look at it and you say, you know what? Guys like Buck Farmer, guys like Jimenez, if they left, I would think they would have probably more success than they're having now currently with the Detroit Tigers. Can we say definitively, because I keep hearing it all the time from writers, other podcasters, whenever we talk about Buck Farmer, when we talk about him, the thing that they say is, well, he has a stretch, but by and large, collectively, he's up and down. He's not good enough to be on the Tigers in this rebuild. I would say however it has to happen, guys like Buck Farmer, guys like Jimenez, I don't know, Vito. I'm starting, at least with Jimenez, I've given up totally on Buck Farmer. I don't think he's it. I don't think he's a guy that's ever going to be lights out for an entire 162-game season in the playoffs. I just don't see it because, look, obviously, in a game versus the Rays, you call upon him to do something. What happened? Nothing. He messed up. Contributed to a blown save. Contributed to an outing that I think Matt Boyd pitched solidly, I think, versus the Rays in his last performance. And it didn't work out because Jimenez and Buck Farmer did not contribute, did not, help out the cause. Jimenez, maybe if he goes somewhere else. Buck Farmer, maybe if he goes someone else. But definitively, in relation to Buck Farmer, you can say that he's just not good enough to be on the Tigers. Let's just let him go. Move on. Though the entire bullpen, I've been screaming it for damn near 2 years, just completely blow it up. Nobody that's on the current roster, you would say, oh my gosh, let's just keep him. Obviously, Rosenthal didn't work out. Buck Farmer, Jimenez are up and down, and the Tigers are suffering because of the fact that really no unit, there really is no strength of the Tigers this year. But Buck Farmer, I think it's time to make a statement, right? He's not good enough.
But when you stink, you still need players on your roster that perform at least a little bit. And you look at Buck Farmer's stats, I have believed that he has stunk up the joint in previous seasons to a large extent. But this year, 3.81 ERA, worth nearly 1 WAR, according to BaseballReference.com. Did you know that Miguel Cabrera, who's making $30 million annually, is worth negative WAR? Buck Farmer's had a better season WAR-wise than Miguel Cabrera, who's making an astronomical amount of money, and so much more money than Buck Farmer. So when you're bad, when you're stinking up the joint collectively as a ball club, and you're hugely rebuilding and hugely under 500, you still need some positive contributors. And right now in the bullpen, it is Buck Farmer. And there's not a lot else outside of Buck Farmer. So I am jumping on the bandwagon only because, really by default, because the rest of the team stinks so highly, you got to believe in somebody. And right now, you look at his fielding independent pitching mark, which eliminates the defense behind him, and it tells you he's pitched even better than his ERA has led on. His FIP this season, 3.5, John. That's really darn good. And the best of his career thus far at the age of 28 currently. So he's gotten it done through 57 now appearances. So, and one start he's made as well out of those 57 games actually that he has played in this season. So collectively, Buck Farmer has not been the issue. Now, has Joe Jimenez been an issue at times this season and consistently been an issue? Yes, but I'm still not of the belief that with Buck Farmer that you get rid of him right now, or that you just walk away from Joe Jimenez, who is a young guy. You still believe in him and his potential. You believe that he has upside, that he can become a high-leverage reliever one day. Yet, at the end of the day, to take the negative viewpoint, neither Buck Farmer or Joe Jimenez are considered high-leverage relievers at this point. Thus, they're not these guys that you live and die with, that you want out there night in, night out in these crucial game moments, late in games, in these, as I already labeled them, high leverage situations, which these guys have proven thus far, and especially Jimenez this season, Doc, that they can't get it done. They're just plain and simple not effective in high leverage situations. When you need these guys to get outs the most, they're not doing so, and especially Jimenez. So forget about Farmer for a moment. Especially Jimenez has not been good enough to say he can be your future closer one day, or the guy that you use most consistently in high leverage situations.
So you're saying that Avila is not going to place a phone call to Octavio Dotel. He's not coming back, is he?
Did you hear about that? Involved in some madness, and he is in trouble with the law, along with Luis Castillo, former Major League second baseman for a long, long time.
Isn't it funny that the pictures they're using are of when he was a Tiger? The pictures in the national headlines
I saw
are
that.
former
on the
Tiger.
national news on the World News with David Muir on Channel 7. It was him in a Tigers uni. You're right.
Messed up, man. A significant drug ring in the Dominican Republic. Shame on you, Octavio Dotel. I wonder, do you think he contributed to anything nefarious in Detroit? Did you read anything on that? Did you see if he maybe contributed to some problems or started slinging around here?
John, that would never happen in Detroit.
Never.
Come on. Detroit.
All right.
John, don't take it that far. Only in his native Dominican Republic.
So the Tigers are playing Houston, and they're probably going to lose a lot of games upcoming, right? You
I like
see the
how that's
schedule?
what we're saying right now. I mean, that's the obvious. I mean, what are we telling the people by saying that, right? I think everybody believes that at this point.
Yeah, my nephew saw the schedule upcoming, and he's like, holy cow. Man, they did have a chance, though, Vito. They had a chance. What do you make of the recent stretch where they've been competitive, have only lost games by one run? Ron Gardenhire keeps saying it, look, there's opportunities for us to make plays, but unfortunately, they're just not good enough to compete, to win the games versus Tampa Bay and Houston. But they were in them, and Tampa Bay's a playoff team. They were in those games, and they took, obviously, many people were like, oh my God, they won a first game in the series. But they had a chance to win the series, but overall, more the same with the Detroit Tigers. A lot of people are impressed with a lot of the athletes in the minors. Riley Green is lighting it up. People are, really liking what he's bringing to the table. But by and large, on the big club, not much going on. And it's unfortunate, too, because you look over in Chicago, and Nick Castellanos is raking, man. He's actually out there doing his thing, and he's hitting. And I was talking to my brother-in-law. I said, see, that he had a point in saying, look, how are you going to judge me on a contract when I play at Comerica Park? I just walk right over to Chicago. I get dealt there, and boom, I'm hitting. And his numbers are amazing, worthy enough, I think, of maybe an extension with the Cubs. I think that what has been said, what you're hearing out of Chicago, they're saying, look, this guy's brought a hunger. This guy's brought a renewed passion. We got to, sometimes as a team, when we have success, we take for granted that there's guys out there that are playing for teams like the Tigers that are kind of going through the motions. And obviously, when Avila tells you you're out, and you realize, I think Nick Castellanos has a point. I think that he recognized that, what? I'm being judged unfairly. I'm on a bad team. I have no support. You guys are asking me to switch positions every 2 years. Now I go over to the Cubs, and all of a sudden, he's hitting home runs, has an on-base percentage over 1. Come on now. He's doing some great things. Slugging percentage is great. He's contributing to the team. I think it's not right that, that a lot of athletes are leaving the Tigers, and they're performing at a level that's significantly better than what they were doing for Detroit.
But, John, it's as simple as this. Forget about the dimensions of Wrigley Field. He's got Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, and Javier Baez in his lineup. You can't go wrong. You're going to get easier pitches to hit consistently and look better because of the depth and strength from top to bottom of your lineup that the Tigers lineup didn't come close to featuring. That's my answer for that, for why Nick Castellanos is succeeding so highly. And some of it obviously has to be contributed to him or attributed to him and what he has done at the plate. And he's made some adjustments, it looks like, and has hit the hell out of the ball so far and hit much better than he was with the Tykes, with an OPS north of 1,000. 7 home runs, by the way, with the Cubs in less than 20 games. A .365 batting average. Yeah, he's doing a hell of a lot more with the Cubbies, but once again, the talent around him in that lineup helps him look better and hit better than he was with the Tigers.
Unfortunately, before the second half of the podcast, got to bring up some bad news. I saw the headline that the Tigers PA announcer was diagnosed with cancer, advanced stages, and the prognosis that was discussed and revealed in the papers, not looking too good. The best case scenario for a lot of these type of cancers that Jay Allen has is about 18 months, but he's a fighter. He's come out there, and I looked, I said, wait a minute, I know that name. you had interviewed him for an episode of Tigers Talk, and to hear that news, especially knowing that he earned his dream job, somebody that, I love the story that Anthony Fennick did. He wrote it, and he said that, in essence, he really didn't formally interview. He just kind of made a phone call to the Tigers and kind of did his interview over the phone and read a lineup through the phone, and the Tigers recognized, wow, this guy's voice, he's got something here, and that's how he got the job. It's his dream job, and for that to happen, please go to his GoFundMe page. I think you're aware of it. We will retweet it here on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Help the man out, because you can tell his passion. You can tell when someone loves their job or is going through the motions, and this guy, Jay Allen, is somebody that you knew loved the job, and for that to happen to him, all prayers are coming from here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You had a chance to sit and interview him, and it's just an unfortunate story that I came across last week.
He was so gracious to me with this time. Recently diagnosed with stage 4 bile duct cancer, very similar to gallbladder cancer as well. And it brings with it a life expectancy of 18 months on average, which you had said yourself already, John. So, it's not the brightest outlook for him, but it seems like he's staying optimistic, has a ton of support, because from all accounts, he's a really good stand-up guy. So a lot of support, and you can support him and follow his daily chronicles with cancer by going to his Facebook page of Jay's Crazy Cancer Journey. So do yourself a favor and like that page on Facebook, and that page has been chronicling Jay's daily battle with the disease that is, once again, stage 4 bile duct cancer. So all of our thoughts and prayers are with Jay and his family right now.
And we all know Jay's going to fight tooth and nail to do the best that he can. He made a promise. He wants to be on the call. He wants to be the PA guy opening day 2020, and let's all hope and pray that that's the case. Go, Jay. Go beat it. And Vito and I, we appreciate your graciousness. We appreciate that you gave Vito the time, and anybody that, is that nice and kind and gracious with their time, we appreciate, and we definitely are sending all positive vibes through these airwaves. Hopefully everybody that knows you and definitely will support you and continue to definitely be there for you in your biggest fight of your life. And definitely here at the podcast, we definitely are going to be rooting for you and following along. Thanks, Vito, for sharing that Facebook page. I greatly appreciate it.
Keep fighting the good fight, Jay Allen. We hope to see you at the ballpark for many more years to come. And with that being said, let's take a quick commercial break on this week's episode of Tigers Talk. And Doc, as you know, one of our other fine sponsors at the network is the Detroit Sports Commission. And its Zenith Prep Kickoff Classic is almost ready to kick off. Now, it's taking place Thursday, August 29th through Saturday, August 31st at Wayne State, and specifically at Tom Adams Field on the campus of Wayne State University. So great matchups from Thursday through Saturday, August 29th through 31st, and that is 2 games a day. 12 teams, great matchups around the clock at Tom Adams Field on the campus of Wayne State University. And for much more regarding the Zenith Prep Kickoff Classic in its 15th year, please follow the Detroit Sports Commission on Twitter and on Instagram at DET Sports. And make sure to check out the Sports Commission's terrific website at DetroitSports.org. And back here on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company, and John Charles Macaron is back in the saddle this week in studio all week long, right? Here in Sterling Heights for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. And you have a lot of work that's coming your way and some good news to report coming up soon as well. But back to Tigers Talk here, and really just a big Major League Baseball topic right now. And it's the possibility of implementing a mercy rule in Major League Baseball. What are your thoughts on that, John?
I thought it was crazy that I saw that on the scroll, and I immediately sent it to you. I'm like, they asked a Major League manager, they asked the manager of the Yankees, do you believe in a mercy rule? And I guess you could look at that, but obviously in Detroit, we might be looking at a bunch of 5-inning games in the next couple of years. I immediately thought, man, you know who's going to suffer from this rule being enacted is the Tigers.
Or benefit from it the most. The fans wanted to leave the ballpark after it's 11-1 after 5 innings anyways, so...
I don't agree, Vito. A baseball game is 9 innings. Play it out. Look, at the end of the day, there are blowouts, but there are not that many blowouts to justify this rule. Look, at the end of the day, here's the problem, Vito. if the ticket price, obviously me going to Miami Marlins Park was a big benefit. The ticket was $15 to sit third row in the outfield. It was awesome. It was a great experience. And I was telling my nephew, see, when a team is not that good and nobody goes to the game, you get a really reasonable price. You get a good experience. But if the Tigers do turn it around in 5 years, what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to jack up the prices. So how can you justify paying, let's say, for example, when the Tigers do get good, $100 to sit in the 8th row? And all of a sudden, it's one of those games where it's like, a 3 o'clock game. They're not really doing batting practice. It's the third game in a series, a day game after a night game, and the Tigers just come out flat. And that's what happened to the Dodgers. They had won. They destroyed the Marlins the first 2 games of the series. Unfortunately, my nephew was a fan of the Dodgers, but the Marlins won because the Dodgers kind of was a getaway day, and they just weren't in it. They came back late, and obviously he was thrilled to see Cody Bellinger hit a home run. He was thrilled, but at the end of the day, the Marlins won the third game of that series, but they lost the series. So imagine you're paying $100, you're sitting there, you take your bonus from the network that you're going to get in 2-3 years, and you're like, okay, I'm going to take Nick to a ball game, and in the first inning, the Astros go apeshit, and all of a sudden, boom, it's like 9-0. 2 innings and you're done?
Well, no, there's no mercy rule after 2 innings.
Right.
It'd be after 5 completed, 5 2/3 innings.
But
okay,
but then
I'll play baseball.
You're sitting there like, oh man, this is potentially going to be a mercy game.
But you want to leave. Come on, John. If it's 12-0 or 15-2 after 5 2/3
You're good?
innings played at Comerica Park, I'm good myself. And
Okay,
by the way, I'm not bringing Nick Schmigel to the ballpark with my bonus. Okay, 3 years from now,
You know
it'll be
what?
somebody else.
You know what I'll say? I'll make it a time limit. If after 2 hours and 15 minutes, you're up by 10 runs or more, call it. That gives you enough entertainment. I think some leagues like the USPBL, and definitely check out the podcast that airs every Wednesday here on our network, the USPBL podcast. I would say that, they have the 2.5-hour rule at times. I would say that after 2 hours and 15 minutes, or a certain time, maybe
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
Yeah.
That gets you your value, and then you can end a ball game. But I'm not into that drastic nature of it, and I'm surprised that some people are in favor of it. Are you?
Yeah, because nobody is at the ballparks after it becomes 15-0 or 12-2 after 5 2/3 innings or late in the game for sure. Fans aren't there anymore. They're leaving the ballparks, and it's a bad look on television when, if you're even tuning into the game at that point, once there's a blowout by 10 or more runs, and you check out the game on your TV, and you see there's nobody at the ballpark at that point, John. And the reason why this really has become a big issue and something to heavily discuss and consider is because of the point there are so many darn position players at an epically high level, Major League Baseball high level in a single season that are pitching game in, game out, or at least once or twice a week now. And on a consistent basis week to week, these position players are having to pitch in games where there are blowouts happening for their respective teams. And who wants to really watch that on a consistent basis? And which managers of these 30 Major League Baseball clubs want to consistently use these guys in games? Guys that are position players. It just makes no sense to play in these games and to keep playing them when the games are out of hand. And you have to dictate a certain amount of runs that you are up in the game to dictate that it becomes a mercy rule. But I think there is some validity to this and why I think it should be brought up at some point in a future meeting with the owners and Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred, because you don't want to see these games that are blowouts, that are lasting. How about the length of these games, too? 3.5 to 4.5 hours, when it's already a blowout. So who's watching on their TV? Who's staying at the games inside the ballparks to watch the games either? Nobody's staying at the games or watching on the TV all throughout these games when the game's already a blowout. So you're losing the interest of fans, and it's lengthening the game way too much when the length of games is already a problem, widespread throughout Major League Baseball, Doc.
So should the number of runs that a team is leading by be 10?
Has to be 10 or more. Because you don't want it to be too close, and then, you know what? There could be a comeback made, right? But you want it to be where there's no chance at a comeback. And when you're up by 10 runs, you know what? More than likely, the other team is not going to come back from that big of a deficit. So you do want the deficit to be excessive, to be 10 or more runs, and I would say after 5 2/3 innings. And maybe you make it 2, where it's the team has to be up by 10 or more after 5 2/3 innings played, and the game already has had to have lasted 2.5 hours. So maybe you bring the time limit into play as well. But I think that would be a harder sell with Major League Baseball owners than a mercy rule after a certain amount of innings played. And because of the fact, once again, the two major issues Major League Baseball has come to know and know far too well is the length of games, and then position players being utilized well too often as pitchers. And we saw it rather recently with Brandon Dixon. Brandon Dixon had a pitch in a game where the deficit was, you could say, insurmountable. The Tigers weren't coming back, and then you have to throw him out there, a position player, and there's way too many of these instances, John, where position players are being used as pitchers.
Speaking of not a lot of fans, so I'll play this quick clip. It's kind of funny. A Little Leaguer, obviously the Little League World Series is going on, and it was reported. He attends a Pittsburgh Pirates game, and obviously this reporter from AT&T Sportsnet, he goes up to him. He's obviously wearing red. He represents Canada. And listen to what he says regarding his experience. It's really funny.
What do you think of PNC Park? Kind of cool, big, first time in this ballpark?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like all the buildings in the back, and not a lot of people here, though.
That's okay. That's all right. It's hot.
And then that reporter is trying to downplay it because...
Whoa.
Yeah, do you hear how much he's trying to downplay that and act cool? Like, hey, no big deal. There are fans here, buddy. And don't bring that up ever again or you're never going to be allowed back on the airwaves. Probably wasn't allowed back on after that, John.
The best was, the reporter kind of go, whoa, it's okay.
Whoa, let's not bring that up. Son, you can't be saying that live on this telecast.
That's the beauty of live television, I think.
It really is. Anything can happen. Hot mic situation, anything can be said, and it might not be what you want being broadcast to the masses.
I'm telling you, Vito, if you're in Miami Marlins Park is the same way. Not a lot of people there.
Nobody's ever shown up, though, John. They've been good. They've won 2 World Series championships.
Yeah.
Did you know that? Since
it's a
1997.
beautiful building that's empty.
Beautiful, empty.
Right near Miami.
Completely
Great
empty.
sight lines.
Well, it's Miami. Guess where the fans really are going? Or the people that live in Miami.
Miami Beach.
They're going to Miami Beach, baby. I'm going to the club. Okay, I'm going
doubt.
to Nikki, I forget what it's called, but you got all these different clubs over there. And the nightlife is extremely popular. So you're not going to a Miami Marlins game when they flat out stink. And largely because of Derek Jeter running the baseball ops over there and making some just horrible decisions for that ball club and its future, too.
Okay, you had a story that caught your attention regarding a Boston Red Sox?
I have that story. Rafael Devers, 22 years old, actually matched Miguel Cabrera, becoming the first guy under 23 since Miguel Cabrera in 2005 to record 100-plus hits and 100-plus RBIs in a season. Rafael Devers of the Boston Red Sox, their current third baseman, only 22 years old, by the way, and is putting up these massively just impressive numbers all across the board, too.
Are you willing to say it? Is he the next Miggy?
Well, I'm saying a lot. Miguel Cabrera had like a ton of great years from, you can look at his range of success from 21 through 33 years old. Miguel Cabrera was the best slugger in baseball, you could argue.
Come on,
second
Vito.
best before Albert Pujols went by the wayside as being a premium slugger.
Be bold. Be valiant. What do you think? Do you
I'm
see
valiant.
it?
I got the hat on. That's why you just brought that up. A nice little play on words. Well, if there's anybody that's going to be the next Miguel Cabrera, well, it's somebody that's matching him when Miguel Cabrera was a young ball player himself. And Miggy back in 05 was 22 as well, as is Rafael Devers right now for this Boston Red Sox club that can mash the baseball but can't pitch. And now Chris Sale, by the way, is on the IL, missing the rest of the season. Not going to undergo Tommy John surgery, but the Red Sox are not as good as last year and are going to miss out on the postseason, it looks like right now, John. But Devers, a huge bright spot, and man, he is really, really good and has been terrific this season.
And obviously, the player that's caught everybody's attention, a player from Michigan, DJ LeMahieu, has just lit up Major League Baseball. The Yankees, man, we were talking baseball on vacation, and everyone was talking about, man, the Colorado Rockies with all the offense that they had, how did they not win? What's going on? DJ LeMahieu is unreal. He's somebody that is really performing well from Michigan and is really, really doing some things that are on a quality level and definitely getting noticed by everybody league-wide.
MVP candidate, DJ LeMahieu, went to Birmingham Brother Rice, was trained by whom? Of the USPBL. Our buddy, Chris Newell, the manager of the 2-time defending champion Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers in the United Shore Professional Baseball League in lovely downtown Utica at Jimmy John's Field. A plug for that podcast, and you had brought it up yourself before, came out today as well, and it features 2 Utica unicorns. Their right-handed arm, Don Goodson, what a story he has, converting from shortstop to pitcher, been terrific this season, ERA under 3. And then also on the podcast this week from the USPBL was Willie Martin. And he is the Utica Unicorns assistant manager, handles their day-to-day operations. Anyways, back to DJ LeMahieu. A big-time MVP candidate, could be the MVP. Rafael Devers could be the MVP in the American League as well if it wasn't for Mike Trout, who has hit now a career-high 42 home runs this season, John. On pace for his best season offensively all across the board. And he's already won 2 MVP awards. John Charles Macaroon. How about that? He's having his best season statistically, offensively, and OPS well north of 1,000. All of these home runs. Just great numbers all across the board. The Great War, I believe it's above 8 now, according to baseballreference.com. And we still have a month and a half to play in the regular season. His Angels, led by Brad Ausmus, aren't going to the playoffs this season. But he's had a terrific regular season and a month and a half left to play to increase his numbers, to pad his totals in what should be his 3rd MVP campaign.
All right, final note. Let's look at the standings. What's impressed you? Who's doing what? Who are the likely candidates to win some division titles and make the playoffs? What are you seeing?
Well, the Indians have come on hugely. But actually, Twins still have played some good ball over the last 10 games, and winning 7 of their last 10 and lead the Tribe by 3 games in the American League Central Division. The Yankees have increased their lead to 10 over the Rays to 16 games over the Boston Red Sox, who are only 7 games above 500 at this point. The Yankees actually have lost 2 in a row now, which is a lot for them at this point, as you already know yourself too, John. In the American League West Division, the team the Tigers currently are playing, who they're just getting beat up by, right? Well, it's the Houston Astros who lead that American League West Division, have won 3 in a row now, helped out by playing the Tigers. Their run differential is nearly 200 plus. How about that? The A's in second place in the AL West, their run differential is at 100 right now. How about that? Very impressive season out of the Oakland Athletics, who don't have the biggest payroll, yet have had a much better season thus far than a team like the Boston Red Sox with that huge payroll in the American League East.
And to end the podcast, Doc's peachy positive note of the week. Edwin Jackson hasn't been a total bust. He's come in and...
There you go. Somebody's got a bust. It's your peachy positive note for the week. Just like that, John.
He's come in a decade after pitching for the Tigers, and we got a chance to watch him a little bit. He's like, oh, he's still got some stuff. Can get some outs. Now, when you go up against Houston, are you going to have the same results? Oh, hell no. They're going to hit you. But Edwin Jackson's come in, and look, in a season where a lot of news hasn't been great, at least he's come in and had a couple performances that have been worthy and noteworthy at least. So, hey, you get an award, you get a positive for those that say, hey, you guys are all negative on your podcast. That's a positive note. Edwin Jackson, a feel-good story. Good for you, man. Come on back. Wear that Old English D proudly and do your thing. Even if you're on your 25th team in the league, we'll find anybody. Like I said to you, I'm like, hey, you know what? I was scouting. I was looking at at Miami Marlins Park. I was like, hey, is there anybody out there that can throw 95 on the gun? Nope. All the kids were showing up throwing 42, 43. I'm like, darn it. There's nobody out there that we can just sign and no feel-good stories. What are you going to do?
Good job, Eddie. He looks good in that Old English D uniform. Now, really quick, I've got a peachy positive note to bring up. Lefty Matthew Boyd has joined elite company and Tigers allure among left-handers. First and foremost, though, he has reached the 200 strikeout plateau in a season for the first time in his big league career, becoming the first Tiger to strike out 200 or more bats in a season since JV did it in 2016.
Oh, now, look, there's another home run that he gave up. Look at that high fly ball.
He's allowed a lot of home runs.
Field. God!
And think about it.
That guy?
How about this stat? Now, this is a negative. I just was positive. I'm going to be negative really quick, then get back to being positive. But my quick note, being negative. Since June 13th, he has made 12 starts and has recorded a 5.66 ERA, John. That's why he wasn't traded for Gleyber Torres or Kyler Tucker of the Houston Astros. And has allowed 20 long balls since June 13th over the course of those 12 outings as well. In stark contrast, in 14 starts before that, he had recorded a 3.08 ERA and allowed 10 long balls. Now, back to the positives for Matthew Boyd. He just had a baby boy named Isaiah on August 19th. Subsequently, has been placed on the paternity list. And in a corresponding move, left-handed pitcher Tyler Alexander has been recalled from AAA Toledo. Now, the big note, though, for Matthew Boyd, he has become just the 3rd Tigers left-handed pitcher to strike out 200 or more batters in a season, joining Mickey Lolich, who did it 7 times in his career, and Hale Newhouser, who did it twice. And you watched Mickey Lolich, right? You're old enough to have watched him and Hal Newhouser, right?
Sure.
Sure, you're real old. You're bald. You're 40-something, so I don't know. But anyways, all jokes aside, Matthew Boyd, overall-wise this season, still a very effective left-handed arm. But when you consider recently, just not as strong. I mean, that's clear-cut and should be brought up, and that's why I had to bring it up and rub it in, rub some salt into the wound for Matthew Boyd. Recently, just not as effective. So, you know what, Matthew Boyd, hopefully this last start that you just had against the Rays, repeat that and have a great end to your 2019 campaign.
Want to thank the sponsors again, the Detroit Sports Commission, DC Sports out there at Lakeside Mall. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome, a great baseball mind. He's in the know, knows the stats, knows the stuff. And hey, when the doc's around, when the lights are on, and when he knows that when he smells that dollar, he smells it all good.
That's when I come back in, baby. I get hungry, and I come back in the studio and record a fresh edition of Tigers Talk. Hey, speaking of stats, another stat for Boyd. Really quick, sexy stat here. He is averaging 11.82 strikeouts per 9 innings pitched, which, if the season ended today, would be the best strikeout per 9 rate by a starting pitcher in Tigers history. Better than Justin Verlander, better than Max Scherzer, better than every single Tigers pitcher in Tigers franchise history. How about that for a sexy man and a father once again in Matthew Boyd?
And if you have a chance, tonight, when you hear this, it's taking place. What's your prediction? Justin Verlander versus Miguel Cabrera. It's going down. Does Miguel Cabrera get a hit?
Does he even play?
No, he's going to play.
He's playing. Okay, good. So that's been reported. We know that. More strikeouts for JV to rack up. I'll just say that I think Miguel Cabrera goes 0 for 4.
Okay.
And I'm going to say 3 strikeouts, 2 courtesy of Justin Verlander.
Let's see what the people think. Follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. You can find the podcast anywhere. Anywhere your favorite podcast is located and hosted, you can find the Detroit Sports Podcast Network and Tigers Talk Podcast every Wednesday. See everybody next time.
Adios.